So today is the day we're going to graft that front frame, I would call it a K-member, to the actual frame that we built. Now we've done a lot of fabricating, I've built a lot of plates, I've done a lot of trimming and edging. I'll kind of walk you through it a little bit as best that I can, but now keep in mind, to get it to this point to where I can actually start welding it up, I've got about 10 hours of just fabricating plates, bending plates, cutting them, trimming them, getting them ground down ready for welding. So I'm just going to walk you over and kind of show you what I did to make it all work out, kind of set you up in a little spot so you can kind of see what's happening. Let's go over there and kind of give you an idea what's happening. So here we have it. I already ran my airlines for the airbags, which should be here on Monday. Today is Saturday. So I got those all ran, ready to go. Now I've built all these plates, and I'm going to kind of disassemble it and show you how I'm actually going to put this together. So we got the front part of the frame set up, we've measured it out, we've triple measured, cross measured. Now we didn't build a frame table. If I was to recommend anybody doing this, first thing you want to do is build a frame table. That's the most important part. Then that way, everything you know is going to be right there. All your measurements, instead of doing it the way I did it. But I've never done this before, so there's a learn from your experience, I guess. So this will actually be cut off. This is the rest of the frame. We're going to cut it right here, and this piece I built that will be kind of a gusset support that will come straight across. This piece will weld into here. So I'm going to take this apart, kind of show you where my thought process comes from. So I just got it kind of clamped together. So here is a plate. Now what I'm going to do with this plate, I'm going to drill a hole right here, probably a 3/4 inch hole, so I can plug weld it right to the frame itself. So that's kind of our structured support. And what I did is I basically just built it out of cardboard. So this one right here, I'm trying to find actually where this piece came from. But anyway, basically just put it up there, measure it out however you want to, and transfer it from cardboard onto the metal, and then you trim it out of the metal. Now this piece here, I put a bend in it, so I just cut a line, and then I just hit it with the hammer to bend it back. So this is going to sit, this is going to sit just like that. So that's that piece. And then I just took my regular tube frame that I built the rest of everything with, built something like that, ground down all the edges. I did have to trim this, grind everything flat, put an angle on it, hit it with the 45, same thing on this end. So the way this will all assemble and go together, it's kind of like a puzzle. We cut the frame right here, so we're about 2 and 3/4 of an inch from this hole to here. This was what we actually used as our reference point. We measured distance from here to this frame horn was 11 inches, and then we measured from this cab horn to the front cab horn, it's 47 inches. So where we got all this, and then from here to here we measured it, it's 18 inches. So we got to make sure everything was square, since we didn't build a frame table. So this piece goes in like this, sits like that. This piece goes in like this, just like a big Lego puzzle. This piece goes inside the frame, and we'll actually weld this up, and then we'll weld this across like that, and we'll weld this, and then this piece will go on like that, and then we'll weld this here, we'll weld that back up, and we'll weld all of this together, and then this piece will go on top. Now I almost wonder if I should make some sort of a jig for this, so that maybe we could sell these pieces to somebody else who wanted to do this. Put comments down below, maybe we'll put together a pattern, because this took a lot of time. This probably took me longer to figure out all this geometry than it did to build the entire rest of the frame. So yeah, and then this piece here, I've got it notched out like that, and it shows the inside. That goes and it sits right on the edge of this frame into that notch. And when this is all said and done, I will hold it together like this while I'm welding it. Then I have another plate that's going to go on this other side that's going to hold this piece to the actual arm, lower control arm bushing bracket. And then these pieces that I've made are just extra gussets that are going to go here. So I'll have one down here on the bottom, and then I'll have another one right here. Now, that's about the best way I can explain what we did. There's a lot of measurements, a lot of thinking it through. Before we actually go and weld this all up, we've already probably put 4 or 5 hours into just thinking it through. Because once it's welded, this is part of the frame now. We had to make sure that we had enough clearance for the wheels to fit. We needed to make sure K-member laid it all the way down the ground. We're also going to be replacing these control arms with tubular control arms. So we had to put that into consideration. We had to make sure that our distance between here and here was parallel, was the same. Had to make sure that all of our dimensions are all correct before we weld anything in. So that's kind of the idea. I've done the same thing over here. Got a bunch of plates built up so it'll all look like that at the end. I braced the actual front of this frame with some 2x4s so the spacing is correct. A lot of thought process into doing this. But now what we're going to do is go through and put some tack welds on, and we'll raise it up. We got the airbags coming. They should be here Monday. So I want to get all this stuff welded up, and then we'll put the airbags in and do some test flips in our next video. But that's pretty much it. I'm going to do a couple little clips of tack welding it in and getting it in place, and then I'll lift it up, make sure that it's nice and strong. And I still have to build another one of these plates for the bottom that will actually connect the bottom here to this piece up here so that it's all structural sound. Now, I don't have any doubts that this is going to work, but making sure that all the measurements are correct is the most crucial. Welding and building stuff, anybody can do that. Making sure it's square, that your truck drives straight down the road, that's probably the most important part. But that's pretty much it for that. Okay, so the next thing that I did, even though we don't have a frame table, I made sure that I had the exact wheelbase that I needed. When I first started this, I got the wheelbase for a standard cab, which is not right. It's 114 centimeters, or 114 inches. It's actually 141.5, because you got to calculate for the extra cab. So make sure that you have a frame jig. Make sure that you have measured out all of your dimensions. Everything that you need to know, you need to make sure that's all worked out before you do this. So from here to there, to the center of the axle back there is 141.5 inches. On a frame chart, if you go to a body shop and you get a frame chart, it has to be converted from centimeters into inches. That was one of the things that we struggled with. We realized that the back axle needs to be shifted back 1 inch. So we had to compensate for that here. So what we did is we measured the center of the, hopefully you guys can see that. We measured the center of our hub here to the floor, and then we measured from the floor over to the back, and then we just took a straight edge to make sure that we were correct. So when I do all my welding right now, I want to make sure that this is moved back 1 inch because I still need to move the axle back 1 inch. But as you guys are building this, as you're doing this on your own or your different type of truck, the first thing that you need to know is your wheelbase. The wheelbase is the most important because your wheels have to sit centered inside of the fender. If they're not, obviously you know what's going to happen. Your driveway's not going to work, your steering's going to be off, so your wheelbase is the most important. And then from there, what you want to do is you want to measure it to be square. So I came from here up to here, which is exactly 47 inches. I've measured it about 1,600 times, so I know that. And from here to the back of this control arm bolt is 18 inches. I know that because I measured it a bunch of times. Our wheelbase is 141.5 because I measured that one as well. So, as of right now, what we're going to do is tack weld this into place. Oh, and the other measurement that we took was from this center hole, which is an actual frame plug. When they build these from the factory, they take this whole piece of metal, they set it down in this jig, and then another piece comes down and pushes down into the frame, which gives it that nice curved effect that they have from factory. And then what they do is they weld pieces into it to give it the structure. So we're going from a channeled frame to a tubular frame, which obviously is a big difference of 4.5 inches of difference. This frame is going to be way stronger. It's not going to flex and give like those did. They designed them to do that, but this one, we want to be able to put a high horsepower engine in here. So we want to have a frame that's strong enough to support all that. With the 4-link, the fully boxed frame, we could put 1,000 horsepower in here if we want to. I don't think I'll go that extent. Maybe 500, I don't know, 400, something like that. But that was the other thing that we needed to do, is make sure the measurements were right. So from here, from this plug to here was 11 inches. When we first started, it was at 13, but we couldn't figure out why the wheelbase wasn't right. Then we realized what we had to do is push that axle back, which we have about 4 inches of adjustment with the joints back there, so that's not a problem. So I'll set you up over the tripod and I'll just kind of tack weld this into place and lift it up, and we'll just kind of go from there. Now I'm going to walk you through some of the measurements that I took to get to where we are. We take you back down here to the frame. So we have a lot of reference points to make sure that we are square, and I'm going to kind of walk you through a few of them. So right here we have 14 inches from the center of this hole. This is a reference point when they build the frame. So from there to here is 14 inches. From the edge of the frame to this bracket here is 3 inches. From the ground to this top of the frame here is 9.5 inches. We also have another measurement that goes from right here over to here, which is 43.5. And if we cross it, this will show us our squareness over to here. It's 43.5. That gives us the cross measurement from the frame to this frame. And then I got another measurement from here to the back of the control arm bracket. It's 18 inches. And then from there, we come over here and we're going to measure from the front of that cab frame horn to the front of the core support frame horn is 46 3/4. Okay, and then we also have this measurement off of the ground to the front is 4.5. And if we cross everything over, it should all be the same on the other side. So we got 4.5 on this piece. And then if we take this piece over here, from the front of that cab horn to the core support cab horns, 46 3/4, which is right where it needs to be. And then if we do all the same measurements on this side, we should be exactly where we need to be at 18 inches. This is at 9.5 inches. And then from the center of this plug to the cab horn, we're at 14 inches. We've got 3 inches across. So we've really measured exactly what it is that we need to do. Now, the reason that we've done it like this is we want to make sure this is as square as possible. We know the frame is square because we built it, we squared it out. But the challenge is to make sure that the front end goes in square to the actual frame. So that is the most important part. And the last thing is we measured the wheelbase. So from this point to the back axle is 141.5. So it's 141 inches and a half. Now we've moved everything back because we're going to move the rear axle back that 1 inch that we already talked about. Now what we've done so far is I've tack welded these in just to kind of get them in position. Once these are all tacked in and finished weld, then I'm going to weld up here to hold that support. Then I'm going to weld this, and then I will put all my pieces on that allow me to make the finish welds. And that's going to go in there like that. Then this piece is going to go like that. And then I got a piece on the other side and so forth. So that's the measurements. Now we're going to go ahead and finish tack welding it all into place. So we got it all welded up. Now keep in mind, I'm not a professional. It's the first time I've ever done this before. But for building all these plates and getting it all square and true, everything's still flat, everything's square, everything's level, the way it should be. Let me take you over and kind of show you what it looks like. Here's the final look down. Now I still got to finish it off, and I still have to cut this right here and then build a filler plate for that. But for the most part, it's pretty decent. So I got some gussets in here, got the plates welded in, got this built. Do the same thing on the other side, got that gusset in. Now when I flip the frame over, I'll put the gusset here on the bottom side, and I'll also cut this off and then flush that in. But I think it came out pretty good. It's pretty level. It's not the best weld job, but the first time I've ever really done this type of graft work with an arc welder. But I think it came out okay. So let me go ahead and hook it up to the cherry picker and lift it up and see how it does. So here we go, guys. I'm pretty sure it's solid as a rock. We'll see if we hear any creaking or cranking or anything like that. Alright. Oh, it's completely airborne. It's a little heavy, but I think we did it. So now we'll flip it over and weld the bottom side. There it is. So she's all done. Got her welded on. I believe it's structurally sound enough to what we need. I'm going to actually take it all apart, flip the frame upside down. I still have to build a gusset right here on the bottom. So I will probably do that on next week's video. I have the airbags coming and the upper ball joints. So I think upper and lower ball joints. So when those come, I will get those put in and do a little video on that as well. But we got it all sectioned together now. So the next step is airbags. So we'll see you guys next week. Please rate, subscribe, and comment, and we'll talk to you later.